Hi, I'm Warren Kruse, Managing Director at iDiscovery Solutions, and my career has been about uncovering the digital truth for corporations and law firms around the world. From complex FCPA cases in the Middle East, in Asia, in other places of the world, to expert testimony for even the SEC. I was an expert for the Security Exchange Commission, which was pretty cool. I got to work with them directly and find out how they work so I could support our clients better when they're being investigated by the FCPA. I've helped organizations navigate some of the most complex internal investigations using digital forensics and e-discovery, structured analytics, unstructured analytics, email threading, and going through tons of text messages and all different types of data. So what we want to do is we want to talk about how we uncover these truths the right way. And it's very simple, but it doesn't happen all the time. The first thing you want to do is you want to have a plan. And I was actually just reading a blog from ediscoverytoday.com where in an epic of dysfunctional discovery, trust me, you don't want your case to have a headline of epic dysfunctional discovery. How do you avoid that? You have a plan. When something happens, you then execute the plan. You're not wasting time trying to figure out what the plan's going to be. You're already executing it because you have the plan created already. And time is of the essence when something happens. If it's an insider threat or it's a quote trusted insider that left, IT wants to get that equipment back and they want to reuse that equipment. We want to make sure it's preserved in case it's needed. So how do we do that? We first start off with chain of custody. You've probably heard chain of custody a million times, but it's where you want to start, and you want to make sure you have a good, unbroken chain of custody. Even the smallest misstep, and I'll tell you, I was asked in a deposition once about one box that was missing, and someone else did the chain of custody, and I wasn't able to answer. And I said, I don't know. But they're going to try and find those things. So you want an unbroken chain of custody. You want to triage the data fast, right? We don't want to go down, paths that we don't know is accurate or not. We just want to do a good, thorough assessment of the data that you have and then determine what the next steps might be. Once you've done the triage, you want to reconstruct the behavior. Again, as I mentioned before, you have lots of different sources. You have iPads, you have computers, you have cell phones, you have cloud storage, social media. You have all of these very different types of data. You want to put them together and you want to reconstruct a timeline to see what that person was up to. After that, you then want to look at what happened maybe around certain dates, like what did they do their last day of work? What did they do the day before their last day of work? What did they do the last week? And so on and so forth. Any triggering events. Did that former employee get put on a PIP or have some HR action? Check those dates to see if they had any unusual activity. Once you do that, you then want to collaborate. And hopefully you've actually started collaborating with your legal, HR, if you have an internal compliance team, you want to collaborate with them to make sure that, especially in cross-border investigations, you're going by the rules of that jurisdiction. So get legal involved early and often. Make sure that they are up to speed, and what you're doing is potentially covered under privilege. It's pretty important when you're doing an investigation, and you don't want your initial theories and suggestions that might not ever be used to then become part of the defense when they subpoena all of your emails or things like that. So make sure that counsel's involved and protecting privilege for you. The next point, maintain defensibility in every step. I hear people sometimes ask, well, if we don't know if it's going to court, can we maybe, just kind of look around and fire up that laptop and, not do the whole 9 yards? Well, it's very easy if you start off with a good chain of custody and a good forensic triage, and you preserved all the potential relevant information, and then you say, oh, you know what, this is nothing, it's not going anywhere, we'll handle it, without legal or something like that, without going to court. Then, after you've preserved all the data and you have a good chain of custody, then maybe you could loosen up a little bit in the defensibility, but the opposite is never true. You can't just, quote, look around and then say, oh, you know what, we found something, let's image this computer, because now all of those date and timestamps might have been altered. So start off with defensibility in every step, and then you won't have an issue later on. To close, internal investigations aren't just about uncovering wrongdoing. They're about protecting truth, protecting your company, and protecting the people, right? You want to handle it correctly. You want it to be an opportunity for your organization to strengthen trust and governance. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully you keep your internal playbook, which you just created after reading this, updated and tested. Don't just have a playbook that, sits on the wall somewhere in a cabinet somewhere. Test it. Do a round table. You'll find gaps in that playbook. Keep it updated, and when something happens, when that bell, goes off, you grab that playbook and you're executing it. You're not losing any time. Thank you.